So perhaps it was because I watched XP to Level 3's Fixing Bards video like 100 times to learn the chords for a Twitter video mocking him. Don't worry guys, it turned out just fine. Anyway, the YouTube algorithm brought me to this, a reaction to Fixing Bards by Esper the Bard. Link in the description. Now, Esper does a great job of breaking down some of Jacob's underdeveloped arguments, a topic that Jacob addresses in his response to his own video. But I'm not here to discuss whether or not bards are overpowered, they aren't, or whether bards have a clarified role within the D&D universe. They do. I want to talk about this comment from Esper's video.
There's another thing that I've noticed, and Jacob talks about this, and he kind of plays around with it in some of his videos, but I've noticed it like in memes and people talking about it online. I think there's an immature concept of what a bard is. I'm not sure why that's happened. It might just be the immaturity of certain players that are out there. But this really generic, stupid idea of the bard just being this hokey minstrel guy who somehow pulls magic out of his ass through singing songs and he tries to seduce everything. I mean, I guess if you're just wanting to play a goof-off game, you could treat a bard like that, but I mean, you're going to have to ignore, like, you know, every major poet and author that's ever existed, from Shakespeare to Dostoevsky to Hemingway to Rumi and Yeats.
And you know what, Esper? I think you're right. Now, of course, the performative nature of a bard is baked into the class. I think what Esper is talking about is this. Why is it that I can share a meme like this, and all of us, perhaps even those who have never played D&D, have insight on the joke? Why is it so easy to grasp that the bard is a raucous and jovial minstrel with a penchant for persuasion? After all, Esper is correct. Bards don't need to be like this. Bards can, and often do, have gravitas, intensity, and depth in a way that belies their public perception. So why the public perception? To understand why this perception persists, I think we have to look beyond the simple answer. If the bards' reliance on charisma was responsible for their reputation, I think we'd expect to see the same reputation among paladins, warlocks, or sorcerers, but we don't. In fact, each of these classes, all of the classes really, seem to have their own ready-made personality. These archetypes exist, I theorize, because they make it easy for us as storytellers to efficiently communicate our stories. Think about it. How different are the thousands of campaigns of D&D being played right now? How many player characters exist with how many backstories? Now, if I wanted to explain to you the nuances of one of my player characters, I could painstakingly describe to you their vivid and developed background, but it's more efficient to simply tell you their archetype right out. The perception persists both because of the bard's charismatic qualities and because archetypes are nearly inevitable in D&D's particular brand of storytelling. I think this makes sense. Human storytelling is no stranger to the type of slapdash story making that you find in D&D. Consider, if you will, the commedia dell'arte, a 16th century art form in which actors would assume the roles of stock parts and sort of improvise stories for the public. Sound familiar? The stock characters in the commedia were centered around class, too, but in a different way. These stories worked well for varied European audiences because while scripts and scenarios changed, the characters were always recognizable. The miserly, greedy old man in a dark cape and red pants? Why, of course, that's Pantaloon. The unmasked, star-crossed lovers gallantly strutting across the stage? That's the Innamorati. And, relevant for our purposes, the brightly colored, sharp-witted, nimble and astute everyman? That is the Harlequin. No. There we go. Harlequin, also known as Arlecchino, much like the bard, was a trickster, a representation of the working class known for his physical agility and his mental cunning. The function of the stock characters of the Commedia dell'arte and the classes of D&D are essentially the same. They allow for narrative efficiency. Unwittingly, I think, over the years of intra-game storytelling, the D&D community has developed and solidified its various classes into these stock roles. This isn't because the roles are inherently one way, and it's not because the community is, quote, immature, as Esper the Bard suggests, but because generations of shared storytelling have influenced our public perception of them. And I'm not the only one who sees it this way. TikToker Offbeat Outlaw has made the same comparison, saying there's a set script you can follow to build your skits off and earn some renown because people would resonate with those characters. Ultimately, I think the answer to why is the Bard like that is because, well, we've all agreed to it. This, to me, isn't necessarily a bad thing. The perception of the Bard, the Barbarian, and all other classes helps us to share with one another the stories that we are telling. The reasons that archetypes are so prevalent across various forms of storytelling is precisely because they work. Arrested Development creator Mitchell Hurwitz describes how every ensemble cast member of a TV show must have the 4 main archetypes: a matriarch, a patriarch, a craftsman, and a clown. And in examining popular culture, it's really hard to argue with his point. Heck, even the characters in my own D&D campaign seem to fit into this archetype. In conclusion, I think class perceptions should be seen for what they are: tools. No one should feel the need to seduce the dragon if they don't want to. That said, do you ever stop to consider why seducing a dragon is a story so quintessentially pervasive through D&D's culture? It's because seducing a dragon is the epitome of using pure charisma to overcome insurmountable adversity. It's humorous, it's unexpected, it's inspiring, it's the Bard. When you see a mob of heavily armored badasses traveling with a scrawny, lute-playing goofball, you should know to expect the unexpected. From there on out, though, the onus is on you as the storyteller. Will you harmonize with the perception of the Bard, or will you find your own melody? With that in mind, I will leave you with the words of that immortal Bard. As William Shakespeare said, "If music be the food of love, play on."